Hey guys, we are reacting to one of the more weird moments of war history, where this is covering the Stigler Brown incident, I think, where a pilot had where a B-17 got really fucked up, and a German pilot just decided to escort the guys to safety instead of shooting him down. And it has a metal song about it, which I'll link down below.
It was December the 20th, 1943, and in the freezing air high above Germany, 2nd Lieutenant Charles Charlie Brown struggled to keep his American bomber on course. Brown had been wounded in the shoulder. His tail gunner, Sergeant Hugh Ecky Eckenrode, was dead, and several other members of the crew were wounded, some severely. Their aircraft, B-17 Ye Old Pub, had been hit twice by flak as it approached its target, the Focke-Wulf plant in the German city of Bremen, forcing the crew to shut down one of the engines and throttle back on another.
Yeah, I think they only had like one engine working.
Lagging behind the main formation of aircraft from the 379th Bombardment Group, and groups of German fighters had closed.
Yeah, they were getting buffed up.
Some blood in the water. Up to 15 fighters had attacked the bomber, and the whole tail section was shot to pieces. The nose cone was missing.
Yeah.
The electrical, hydraulic, and oxygen systems were damaged. The radio was
they actually fainted. Just barely managed to avoid crashing to the ground.
Fuselage. But B-17s are tough old birds, and this one somehow kept on flying despite the damage. Brown blacked out for a short time due to pain, loss of blood, and a lack of oxygen, and the bomber spiraled towards the ground. Brown came to and realized that the B-17 was only a few hundred feet.
I mean, how do you not crack your pants during that?
He somehow managed to get it back under control and turned west towards England in safety, 250 miles away. Brown wasn't able to coax the B-17 much above 1,000 feet, and he was vaguely aware that he had passed close to the perimeter of a German airfield. Soon after, he realized that a German Messerschmitt Bf-109 was flying in close formation beside him.
Your best friend.
It was so close that Brown could see the German pilot as he gestured towards the ground, telling Brown to set the bomber down. Most of the B-17's gunners were wounded. Only a few guns were still working, and none were able to shoot at the enemy fighter alongside. Brown could only look on at the German pilot and shake his head. For a short time, the Messerschmitt flew beside the bomber. Then it slid away above and behind. Brown waited for the gunfire that must mean the end of Ye Old Pub. But nothing happened. He realized to his astonishment that the German fighter was flying escort on the B-17. As they crossed the coastline and flew out over the North Sea, the fighter remained on station. Only when they were well out from the German coast did the fighter slide in again, close to the bomber. Brown looked across, and the German pilot looked back at him, raised a gloved hand in salute, and then swung his aircraft away back towards the east. Brown managed to put Ye Old Pub on the ground.
I think the thing was also on fire.
In Cambridgeshire, but at an airbase of the 450.
Yeah, because the thing was fucked up. You could see through it.
He and all his crew, other than the tail gunner, survived. At debriefing, Brown told his story about the German fighter which escorted him. It was decided that this should be kept secret. The notion of an honorable German pilot choosing not to shoot down a damaged American bomber just didn't fit with the message that the US Air Force wanted to give out. Charlie Brown survived the war, went home to go to college, and then rejoined the Air Force in 1949. He served until 1965, when he retired as a colonel. It wasn't until much later, in 1986, at a meeting of retired combat pilots called Gathering of the Eagles, that he first spoke about what had happened. The response was strong, though some questioned whether the whole incident really happened. Even Brown began to wonder. His memories of that day in 1943 were hazy due to his injuries, exhaustion, and the stress of combat. Could he be remembering it all wrong? Brown decided that he was going to find the German pilot involved, if only to prove that he hadn't imagined the whole thing. It took 4 years, but in 1990, Brown finally received a letter from a man named Stigler, who was living in Canada. Stigler explained that he had been the pilot of the German fighter who had escorted him to the pub. On December the 20th, 1943, Franz Stigler had been a 27-kill veteran pilot. He had flown against American bombers in his Messerschmitt Bf-109 G6 that morning, and he was refueling on the ground when Ye Old Pub passed close by. He took off intending to shoot down the American bomber. However, as he closed with the limping aircraft, he could see just how badly it
Yeah,
had been hit.
like I said, it was
He would
fucked
later
up.
say that he had never seen a more severely damaged aircraft still flying. Stigler's commander had told his pilots never to fire at an enemy who was descending on a parachute. While the crew of the old pub hadn't bailed out, they were clearly no longer capable of fighting.
Yeah.
Stigler decided that he could not bring himself to attack. Instead, he flew alongside and gestured to Brown to land. He just simply couldn't imagine that the crippled aircraft could possibly make it back to England. When Brown refused, Stigler made an extraordinary decision.
I think he also
Instead of shooting
motioned
it down,
for
he flew
the
close
the
formation
plane
on
to,
the
like,
B-17,
fly to Sweden,
hoping that this would
which was
deter
neutral.
flak batteries on the coast from firing at it. He flew with the bomber well out over the North Sea until it was clear of German airspace, and then left it to continue towards England. Stigler never told anyone about what had happened. Sparing an American bomber would likely have led to punishment and perhaps even execution, but he often wondered if it had made it back to base. Stigler continued flying fighters throughout the war. In 1953,
He
led
almost
British
got an
from
Iron
Germany to
Cross.
Canada, where he
Like,
started.
cause like B-17s were like for 4 points, and he was 4 points away from getting like an Iron Cross. But again, he saw how fucked up the plane was, and Gardenhub actually did a collaboration with Sabaton, and I'll like look for that video and show you just how fucked up the airplane was.
A successful business. When he heard from Charlie Brown in 1990, Stigler confirmed every aspect of his story. Franz Stigler and Charlie Brown were astonished to discover that they had been living less than 200 miles apart for much of the time since the war. Stigler had settled in Vancouver, British Columbia, while Brown was in Seattle, Washington. In the latter years, the two men remained close friends, often visiting and talking to other flyers about their shared experiences.
Let's see. Okay, so this thing was like collaborated with Yarn Hub, like they did the animation. Like, as you can see, your animation really improved. Let's see if we can find the airplane.
In the ball turret. Ahead of the pub, Sergeant Bertram Frenchy Al Dog Sadek took out the second, 190 of the pub.
Actually, I'm gonna show you
Sergeant
like the
Bertram
fight.
Frenchy Coulomb in the turret shot the 190 out of the sky. The navigator, Al Dog Sadek,
I mean, it's
took
like
out
fucking
the
epic.
second. Pinky reported that engine 3 had been hit. That left just one engine at full
Yeah,
power.
only one engine working
BF-109s
at
attacked
100%
the pub
power.
from behind, swarming all over. But due to the cold wind running through the pub, most of the
Wait,
guns
hold
were
on.
frozen. It's December 2nd, Lieutenant. At 11:30, approaching the target of the Focke-Wulf plant near Bremen.
Let's
The
see.
pub is rocked as 4 explosions go off right in front of the B-17.
Yeah, you can see how
A cry
fucked up
comes
they're
across the
getting.
intercom. We're hit. In the plexiglass nose, a huge hole had been made, and icy cold wind was being blown inside,
Yeah, that's not obviously
making
not
freezing
good.
conditions for the crew. Engine 2 had been hit, and co-pilot Spencer Pinky Luke let out an expletive as he noticed Frenchy Coulomb in the turret took out the second. Pinky
So-
reported that engine 3 had been hit.
Yeah.
That left just one
Yeah,
engine at
when
full
one engine
power.
working properly,
The BF-109s attacked the pub from behind, swarming all over. But due to the cold wind running through the pub, most of the guns
yeah, that
were
is not
frozen.
good.
In a turn now, the pub was repeatedly hit, taking
Yeah, see how
extreme
fucked up the
damage
plane's getting?
and killing the tail gunner. A shell penetrated and exploded near the waist gunners, injuring the crew and creating a huge hole. The oxygen supply was taken out, and the pub spun towards the ground, with the crew unconscious due to lack of oxygen.
There's like one
B-17 fell
tailpin left.
4 miles.
And as
Charlie
you can see, you can start to see
started to
through
climb
it.
and grabbed the controls, pulling back as the plane continued to fall. 5,000 feet, 4,000 feet, 3,000 feet. Just moments from hitting the earth, the plane
You can only see
pulled
through
up,
the plane.
almost scraping the trees as it did.
And also, here's something cool. Just wait for it. Wait for it. Guess whose grandkid this is?
Hi, my name is I would like to thank Sabaton
Yeah,
and your song, No
the
Gold
Luftwaffe's
Star.
grandkid.
Because of this, the story of my father will live on. See you on your next concert tour. Safe journey, gentlemen, and again, thank you.
They got the shirts. I mean, what are the odds of that happening? What the fuck would happen to my recording?